are these people?
We're here with the lovely Jose Vega himself, as well as my co-host Collin Radix-Carter, on another lovely Wednesday. So I
Yeah.
see people are in the chat already.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
So, so yeah, Jose, thank you for being on, and well, one, being here on our 50th. So pleasure talking to you finally. But yeah, we definitely have actually we're glad you're here because we have wanted to talk to you for a while, so very excited that you're here.
Good. I
But
saved all my my juicy insider stuff for you guys, so
oh, great.
I can tell you guys all the stuff I haven't told other people. So
Awesome.
As long as you don't yell at me that we're gonna die, you know, like and
Sure.
get dragged off. Like I'll have security take you out, Jose. You
Oh
know.
no. Yeah,
But
the remove
anyway,
button on Zoom, yeah.
We brought some stories for you to cover, so
Two of
while we
them,
show those.
yeah, so two of them you're going to be very familiar with, and since obviously we're going to play to you, we actually want to use this opportunity to talk to you about these things. So so I know this is kind of, you know, a lot of other channels have talked about it, but we know you, obviously you've confronted Hakeem Jeffries twice, technically, as well as Jamal Bowman in AOC. And most recently, you had a comrade, a couple of them confront Rashida Tlaib. So wanted to talk to you about that, more especially since that's the newest one, as well as any updates regarding, you know, what's happened to you, you know, which I think a lot of people know, but, you know, just kind of moving forward, you know, if you can share what your plans in terms of, you know, confronting our politicians and trying to reveal the truth, you know, in light of all the gaslighting and, you know, all the shenanigans that they're trying to pull. So definitely want to hear your opinion on that. And then we had to do it, unfortunately. We didn't particularly want to do it.
Blame me. But you know, are you in a cult? Is it a cult?
Yes.
Why do they think it's a cult?
Yes, it's a cult. Every Wednesday we read Shakespeare together, and we
nice.
You know, that's our cult.
Captain, my captain. Pretty much.
That would be exciting to talk about. You can ask me anything, and if I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you I don't know. But I don't care. People,
okay.
Yeah, that's actually, I wish more people asked me about it, because
right.
I think a lot of people kind of dance around it. They're like, they try to kind of get the activism without really going into who I am, you know, with the LaRouche stuff. And like, people should know I have no problem with it. People can ask me any absurd thing they've heard, and I will be glad to clarify it. But we're getting to that later, right? Or are we getting into that now?
Yeah,
yeah, okay. We'll get into that.
And then,
okay, so we'll come back to it then.
Collin wants to rant on this lady, which can't blame him.
No, I didn't particularly want to, and you didn't particularly want to either. But there's
things people are missing.
Right, there are some things that people are missing that I've been yelling, and I think, you know, it deserves yelling again in context now that she's formally running to primary Joe Biden, and the things that she's not saying, I think it's a lot more telling, if anything else. So I'm going to rant on this lady later.
And last thing on the menu, No Cop City. Stuff's happening over there, right above me in Atlanta. So figured we should talk about that. It's important. You know, anytime cops are willing to murder people for stuff is probably important to cover. But we'll get there. But anyone remember that guy's face back there? Is it just me that remembers that? Am I that much of a internet nerd that I remember that guy?
I remember that guy. I know. Yeah.
That was on intervention. That's the joke. But can we get started? You want to get started, Gabriel?
Here we get started. So let's backtrack a little bit. If you want to take us back in the not so distant past, Jose. So most recently, as I said, you confronted Hakeem Jeffries, technically the second time, because the first time you confronted him with Jamal Bowman back in September, correct?
Yeah, September
Um,
27th. Yeah.
so for those who don't know, and actually I don't know the exact details of this either, can you care to explain what brought you to basically confront Hakeem Jeffries again this time?
Well, I think it really is all one thing, and it's funny because the very first intervention I did was actually back in 2019, and I didn't really have the power of social media yet. I didn't really understand it then. It was all pre-COVID, and so I recorded myself, but I didn't post it until recently. And that intervention was on Victoria Nuland and funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Like I told Espaillat to his face, we overthrew Ukraine. This is leading us into a war, and we're funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. So that was 2019. And then he said back then, which I think was amazing because it came true. He said, the Russians and the Kurds are going to invade Ukraine, and we need to give Ukraine all of our support. And so I just thought that was crazy that he said that back then, and I feel kind of dumb only posting it now, but I posted it back a few weeks ago. And so the Bowman intervention was actually the fourth intervention I did. The second one I did was on Kamala Harris back in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, if you Google Bronx heckler or Harris heckler, Bronx Harris heckler, you'll see articles of me come up, and that's my cover. So on Twitter, you see me with the mask and going like this, and you see the two security guards. That was from when I took I broke in. I didn't break in. I snuck in. I didn't sneak in either to the Kamala Harris event. They had a list of names of people who were supposed to be allowed in, and I basically just kind of like walked really fast through the lady with the list, and she let me in. And that was actually that wasn't on Ukraine. That was just like, hey, you're coming here to pitch Build Back Better, but people just died here from this hurricane in New York, and you're not really doing anything to save lives. And so that's when I became known as the Harris heckler. So I felt like Batman because nobody knew who it was. Nobody knew it was me. It was just some guy in the Bronx heckled Harris, so the Harris heckler. Then I did Kristen Gillibrand. That was on Ukraine. That was on the kill list. The kill list where Mirat Varet's in the CCD list, the Center for Countering Disinformation. My friend Diane Sayre, who ran for Senate against Chuck Schumer, it was on that list. And so now that brings us to Bowman. I didn't really do my research too much because I didn't know Jeffries was going to be there.
Right.
I just got tipped off that Bowman was going to be there, and I just booked it because I had done stuff with his office, and they completely blew me off and ignored me. I made a whole thread about this after I did the AOC intervention. Like, I tried to play the game. I tried to play nice. I tried to reach their office the right way, emails, call them, have Zoom meetings with their aides and stuff, and none of it worked. So you got to escalate. So I went to Bowman, and I sat there the whole time because they said they're going to take questions. And then he said, okay, well, we're going to wrap up now. We're going to come to concluding remarks, and then we're going to, have to get going. So he says, we could do more on guns. We could do more on climate. We could do more to advance the Black cause. And then I just stand up and I just, I go off on him and I say, you're a hypocrite because you want to advance the Black cause, but you're funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine, the same people who kill in the name of white supremacy. And at that time, in that September, I think we had just had that Buffalo shooter, who shot those people in the supermarket.
Yeah.
What was he wearing? He was wearing the black sun symbol, the same symbol that the Azov battalion uses when they kill people in Ukraine. And so I said, you're a freaking hypocrite. And like, I just unloaded on him like that. And that was the only time I remember him telling me, or a politician telling me, I will talk to you afterwards. And I believed him. He did talk to me afterwards, 40 minutes later, though, after he shook everybody's hand and posed for pictures with the media. And then he came up to me very upset, said, yo, man, you could have talked to me one-on-one. He said, Mr. Bowman, And I said, no, this is a town hall. Your constituents need to know the truth. And by the way, as I was sitting in the back waiting for him to talk to me, some people came up to me and I'm a city councilwoman. I didn't know we were, doing this. And I'm really happy you spoke up and said that. Yeah. And so I was very happy about that people didn't know this, and you got to make them aware of this. And so I just, and So I said, okay, anyway, what are we going to do about the Nazis in Ukraine? And he said, we're going to continue to do the work on what we came to do, on what we're going to do. And he just walked away from me.
With the macro and the micro. And
yeah.
I think I first met you on a Action for Assange stream, I think a long time ago.
Could be.
Vaguely. But I know you've worked with Ian member Lucy before doing some stuff. She brilliantly decided to ask AOC stuff in Spanish. Very choice. Yeah. And I know Collin can sympathize with what you do as well, since he was the AOC heckler for forever.
Oh
yeah? You were asked about the 10%, weren't you?
Yeah, so 2019 when they did that that staged like
for the eviction moratorium, right?
Yeah, the housing moratorium in DC. I'm based in DC. Like another commentator, Franco Analysis, when they were wrapping up, asked, you know, AOC, so, you know, what are you going to do regarding, like, are you going to give full rent mortgage forgiveness or whatever? And AOC kind of blew her off. And then I, like, within on the steps, kind of called out, you know, like, what about, I basically called them out and said, you know, what are you going to do? Like, you're charging us. Basically, they were like, you need to organize. And I was like, so what are you guys going to do? Like, you're charging us, so what are you going to have? And then she went into her thing, and then they kind of realized, oh, you know, oh shit, like, we have to end it. So Corey was basically like, okay, we're going to turn on the music now. And they drowned me and Franco out. So so that's kind of like my
but you got to see their cute dance moves.
Yeah,
you know, what the real people really need to see.
Yeah,
but you brought some stuff with us, right?
I think. So so this is what you said back when you confronted Hakeem. I confronted Hakeem Jeffries on a Nord Stream 2 pipeline revelations. I asked him to inquire into whether he's or not is true to hold POTUS accountable. His response: let's praise Biden on what a great job he's done and reaffirm our commitment to Ukraine. So we're just going to play this. And then if you want to comment on, because I know some stuff has happened to you since then, that I know I'm sure you want to kind of share, but I definitely want to kind of have you speak on that in terms of that post, and then, you know, moving forward, you know, what you plan.
Sure.
So let's go ahead.
I got it. I had it.
Okay, go back to memory lane, and
I had it, and then you clicked.
Oh, sorry.
You messed me up. You're good. I had it queued up. I was ready, you know. Here we go. We gotta do this.
Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke to it. He is a former member of the CIA.
No.
Okay. 2 seconds. Filters. Flip flop this. Grab this wire with my toe, and
the UN Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke.
What? Oh. This wire is the one I was supposed to grab. God.
To it. He is a former member of the CIA, and he testified in support of Seymour Hersh's article on the United States bombing Nord Stream pipeline. If it is proven that the United States bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as has been asserted by Seymour Hersh and his article, will you call for the United States to acknowledge and admit that that was an act of war against Germany and Russia? And I'm asking this because this may be the only way to prevent the rest of us from being killed in a thermonuclear war. And I don't want to be fried. Don't you think the media should be reporting on whether or not this is true? And don't you think you should be inquiring into whether or not this is true?
Well, thank you for the question. One, I've got no information to suggest that the United States was involved in bombing the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because you weren't briefed on it.
Sir, you got your chance to ask a question.
So you give me an opportunity to respond.
You weren't given information because he explicitly says you weren't briefed on it. Right. Shouldn't you inquire?
So here's what I'll say about, I think, President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to the Ukraine and Russia.
We committed an act of war. What are you doing to respond to that? We have to hold Biden accountable. Listen, you're from Brooklyn, right? You know when to call bullshit when you see it. So do I. This is bullshit right now. And I see what's happening right now. That does not silence me. You can hear me right now. I want you to say something about the bombing, because we're all going to die from a nuclear war right now unless you stop it and you at least put and inquire into whether or not it's true. This war in Ukraine is going to leave us all dead. So what are you going to do? Because you need to inquire. I'm a New Yorker too.
Here's what I'll say.
Say it.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainians.
That's fucking bullshit. Do not do that. You will end us all dead.
In this war against Vladimir Putin.
Peace. We need talks.
Because
why are
it's
you
not
sabotaging
just-
talks?
it's
Do
not
not put
just
your
a
hands on me.
battle between
We need
Ukraine
peace talks.
and
I am not
Russia.
going to take this.
It's a
We need
battle
peace talks.
It's a
You
battle
are leaving.
between
Listen.
democracy
Did you even read the
and
allegations?
autocracy. It's a
No.
battle between
How
truth
about
and
accountability?
propaganda.
And just the kung fu
It's a battle
slip.
between
Okay.
Get
How
out of
about
that.
religion?
freedom.
Not
You know?
Democracy,
How about
truth, and
conversation?
freedom will
Like, all right, good
Freemason.
base, dead weight, make it hard on
Not
them. You know?
destruction. How about that?
I want to ask
How
you to
about it?
join me for
You
a round of
goddamn
applause.
airhead. You're
Great choice of words. I love when they cut your mic and you were just like, yeah, nope, not working. There's like
That doesn't
20
silence
people in
me.
this room. Like, I can out yell all of you. It's gonna be okay. Like,
Yeah. I think
So-
you know, that intervention is probably the last one I'll do for a minute, because
Yeah.
I'm working with some people on doing some Zoom classes. I just wrote a guide with the help of some people, an interventionist guide, right? It's like an in-depth, like if you're by yourself, if you're with a friend, if you have 2 or more people with you, right? What to make sure, how to find these events, like, and we're going to now do some Zoom classes, which I will announce hopefully on a very big show, you know, also an alternative media show. I can't say the name yet, but I'm confirmed to be on Friday, and people can take their guesses, but I won't confirm who it is just yet.
Okay.
But
get
I'll
me in
announce
touch
the class.
with that. I'll help you do that kind of stuff too, because I got some tricks
Yeah.
for Zoom as well. So, you know,
Good.
like recording it, that kind of stuff, all useful.
Yeah. So we'll but I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying, you know, I saw, I think it was Snowden at one point. He had went on some show and zoomed in, right? And not the person doing the show didn't realize Snowden knew everything about this guy, right? And Snowden came in and did pressed one button, right? And started showing information to on air that they could do nothing about because they're using his feed anyway, right? Like things like that where you're in Zoom, you know, being able to bring up information and record stuff at the same time, very useful. But, you know, reach out to me on Twitter, I'll help you out.
We'll be in contact about that. Yeah, no, so the
Yes,
Zoom
sir.
classes are coming next week. Because ultimately I think, you know, for one, and here's an insider info, I don't like to repeat the congressman unless there's a reason to. Like the Nord Stream revelations is definitely a reason to revisit. But myself and Kynan, you know, who did the AOC intervention with me, by the way, happy birthday, Reef.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, another day older.
Yeah.
So
Him and I went to go do an intervention the Sunday after, so I guess 5 days after we did the Jeffries intervention on Espaillat. And we had already done Espaillat. It was in a small venue, it was in a church. And I told Kynan, don't make eye contact. He might recognize us. You know, we tried our best to be low key. And as the event was starting, he's like, I want to thank Eric Adams for being here. And Eric Adams, I want to thank Vanessa Gibson, our Bronx Borough president. And before we begin, I want to thank Jose Vega and Kynan Dieseltwat in the audience. They are part of the LaRouche group, and they are here to make noise, but they are our neighbors, and we welcome them anyway. So, boys, whenever you want to go. Look, Kynan was paralyzed with fear because he was like, oh, no, they know he can't do this. I'm like, what are you doing? You're supposed to go first, man. And so, you know, it was a bluff. You know, ultimately, we decided, like, you know what? Like, let's respect the venue and let's try and see. Maybe he will take our questions. He didn't. And I let it go because honestly, it was a sign that says that like I'm a victim of my own success now. I can't keep doing this. And honestly, the point isn't for me to keep doing them. Like I want other people to stand up and start
Yes.
doing these. So
Yeah. Holding your politicians accountable. God forbid we do that.
Exactly.
Which
so I know
me
you
to my
wanted
next
me to
question
go
before we
on,
get
yeah.
on to your friends Tlaib in words intervention, that's it.
Yeah.
Best word I've seen describe calling bullshit out. But you know, I've seen a lot recently of going after left wing, so to speak, if you would like to call them that. We all know it's a uniparty anyway. So any other uniparty members on the other side of the aisle you guys have plans to intervene on?
I don't want to. I mean, yes, we do. Like I
Not
did
to give
Mike
away your
Pompeo.
yeah.
I did Mike Pompeo back in November. So the problem is I just live in a blue state. I live in New York, you know.
I feel you.
And not only that, I mean, I'm in the city, right? You know, the nearest Republican to me is like in Staten Island, and like I gotta take a ferry. It was Nicole Malliotakis. She's a congresswoman, right? You know,
Hey,
I think so, yeah.
yeah, she's somebody I'd like to yell at. I mean, you know, yes, I mean, everybody who votes for this stupid war should definitely be intervened on. I don't have a bone to pick with the Democrats, except the fraud squad. You know, them. You know, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but like I do give them the benefit of the doubt that they are people with conscience who are just swallowed up in the establishment. And I know some people think that they're like heartless and they just don't care. I don't necessarily think so because I've said this before. You know, AOC and Bowman and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, I'm sure they had the same fiery spirit that we all have right now. And when they got into the political game and they went into the Democratic Party machine, you know, they learned they had to make some sacrifices. They had to sacrifice principles and
yeah,
dignity
they got their mind
in
right.
order, yeah, right, in order to get what they want. Like, oh, just play the game a little bit and then you'll get what you want. And not only that, but they get classified briefings on all sorts of things. And so they're like, why the hell would I listen to my constituents when I've got experts and people giving me classified briefings on a whole bunch of information? Like, I know things that the public doesn't know. Therefore, like I know way more than my constituents do, and they will never understand the decisions why I make the decisions I make. And you know, like the Medicare for all vote, like not to switch too much, you know, but they didn't want to do that House Speaker, you know, like withhold Nancy.
Yeah, they didn't want to play
until
the
they
game.
can get right because they said, well, even if we force the vote, it's not going to pass anyway. It's like, well, at least we'll know where people stand. Like what Matt Gaetz did with the Syria resolution today. Like even he said it's probably going to fail, but I'm bringing it because I need people to know where their congressman stands on having our troops in Syria, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to know where they stand. Like that's a great idea. That's a great strategy, right? Because even if you know people who say like Nancy Pelosi, who's saying she was for Medicare for all, if she said votes no on it, that's a big deal, right?
Well,
Like,
I think
whoa.
what you guys show, you know, partially, I don't think a lot of those, the squad has been asked those difficult questions for one, and thank you for being one of the members doing that. Two, it's one of those things that shows that like the constant naivety, right? Like eventually that's malice, you know, when it's brought up, things are not done the correct way, right? Their constituency is still not the focus of their electoral duties, then you know, at some point they're the same as the rest of them, in my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not the only one. You know, you've heard this before. But you had some of your friends talk to Rashida Tlaib recently, yes?
Well, before that, though, I just wanted to address the whole security and the Capitol Police
Yeah.
calling me.
Please.
Yeah, please
Because,
do.
yeah, so I got a call from Capitol Police. Forget when it was. I think it was I don't know, it's been a week now. I think it was the 27th of February. Something like that. I guess it's been 9 days, maybe. And like I did record some of the conversation, but I didn't want to. I did post it, but then like I took it down because I spoke with some people and they told me, you know, they weren't sure about the legality of it, whether or not it's okay to post a recording like that because this is a federal officer. So, you know, I ultimately didn't want to give the opposition any legal ammunition to go after me. So I took that down. But I mean, the lady was courteous at first, which like I find is like their tactic, right? To kind of like be soft and sweet with you. So like, I'm somebody you can trust. Don't worry, sugar. You know, but you know, she was asking me questions like, well, am I going to do this again? You know, am I going to go see Jeffries again? What would have happened if I wasn't escorted away? And like, you know, I just basically told her this is all nonviolent, exclusively nonviolent, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say. And you know, going forward, like, I mean, I'm just too damn high profile. I'm sure they've got a picture of me at every Democratic person town hall. Watch out for this guy. You know, we legally can't kick him out, but just be ready to move him if needed, right? And so I think it just speaks for the urgency for other people to do this. And also, I mean, I lost my job, which, like, to be fair, like, I was in between jobs and I was scheduled to start training on the new job the next day after, or a couple days after I did the Hakeem Jeffries intervention. And then I just got an email basically saying there's a conflict of interest and we can't have you on board anymore. And like, I can't say too much, but I later found out that some of their clients are people like Richie Torres and Espaya. And so
let me guess, you signed NDAs. Okay. Yeah. Enough said. Cool. But
that's public. Like their client list is public. Anyway, I don't want to say the name of who it was or what it was. So yeah.
But it rhymes with. No, I'm joking. But here is Citizen Free Press shouting you guys out. Rashida Tlaib confronted at University of Michigan over her pro-war stance on Ukraine. Citizens asked how she could talk about the Detroit water crisis when she's given over $100 billion to Ukraine, right?
Yeah. So can you set this up, Jose? Like, what happened here? Like, and who was this?
So I get the call that my friends are gonna go do this, and like we always discuss beforehand what should be brought up and stuff. And what it was happening there was she was going to, I think it was Michigan State University, with this guy named Abdul Sayed, or Dr. Abdul Sayed.
Dr. Sayed, yes.
Yeah, and a state representative, I think it was like a state senator or somebody, Lily Chang or something like that is her name. And they were there to talk about environmental justice. Right. And the questions, the Q&A period, well, it was all written down. All the questions are written down. And so in my guide, I talk about how to deal with dishonest Q&As, as I label them, right? So some Q&As at town halls, you get to write down your question, and then the staff will select it and give the best ones to the congressman. That was the case here. And so my friends waited till it was the last question. So in the beginning of the video, and I edited it. So I made sure you get the part where the moderator says, okay, we're now going to go to our last question. At that point, my friend Stuart stands up, right? Because you also kind of want to be respectful of the event if you can be, because there's an off chance they might take your question. But he did the right thing. He waited till the last question. That's when you stand up and interrupt. And then that's when you see the events of the video.
Okay. Y'all ready?
All right.
3, 2, 1.
All right, so this is the last question.
That's not how we're doing questions.
Nope.
Any place that you could get more money for the Wayne County region, that it would come from the $100 billion that we've sent to, over $100 billion to Ukraine to fight a war, which I can't imagine, if we're talking about moneyed interests and talking about big lobbying groups, that there wouldn't be more of an effort to go after that. Further, the revelations recently over the Nord Stream pipeline explosion from Seymour Hersh, which point to the very clear evidence that it was the United States that did the bombing, I think is a very important thing to identify, because you, Congresswoman, have not voted against the funding of Ukraine. And it puts to the line the whole notion of the rules-based.
Unrelated.
I'd like to hear from you.
It's an important question. Let me finish.
I know it. Write it down.
And so my question is, if
Write it down.
if we're promoting this idea of the rules-based order, yet we proceed to blow up pipelines, including an ally, Germany, then will you continue to go
Right there,
on with
he
this
asked her,
line?
do you want to
Habibi, thank you. We really appreciate the input, and thank you for your care and consideration. We have a process that we've been following. I think your question is a very important one. It's not really the space.
Why is Kirkland Brand the Rock trying to dictate what's happening here?
Yeah, he's playing Captain Save a Politician because
Basically,
I zoomed in on his face. You can faintly hear it, but he puts the mic down. He says, "Do you want to answer this question?" And then she loudly says, "No." So then he says, "Okay, we're gonna move on here." He's like really trying to get him to stop, right? And anyway, yeah.
Right, it's kind of out of context. There are a lot of important questions. We're not.
How is it out of context? For one, no, sir. No, sir.
Trying to answer all of them here. So we're talking about specifically environmental justice, specifically in this region. Really appreciate your question.
You mean a exploded pipeline isn't an environmental problem, let
the
alone
biggest
nuclear
environmental
war
problem in the last century, really. Like,
yes, yeah, like literally natural gas was spilling into the ocean, but okay.
Question, and I appreciate your care on the issue. We're not actually going to take it because there was a whole process here that we'd really appreciate you respect it. So thank you for your question.
Well, I don't respect it. So now what?
Yeah, never
really appreciate it. Understood.
Never ever.
Not the right venue, not the right time, not the right space.
What would be the right time, space venue, please?
We'll be there. There isn't one.
Like, we'll schedule that one.
Thank you so much. All right, next question.
So this is the... This is the last question.
I think you should just read the question.
Yeah, here we go. Ready? I'm going to hold the mic up right here. So this last question's in first person, so it's not actually me asking the question. I work for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Covered up. Where's the dignity? Where is the honesty? Where are you going to tell the truth? This is a lie that you're allowing to continue to be told at the expense of your own constituency. Think of the $100 billion that could be going to Detroit, could be going to Dearborn, could be going to the infrastructure of the United States.
I try to say it kindly.
You're blowing up things around the world and walking us into nuclear war.
So here, I'm just like, so everybody focus on me. Focus on me. All right, I want to say something here. There is a world in which sometimes people with great intentions miss the mark on the folks to whom they should be aiming those great intentions. I'll be honest with you.
Huh? What?
Yeah, this is so dumb because he tries to throw her a bone. He does. He tries to say, "Oh, she would never do something like this," and then she shoots it down in the next 10 seconds. She's like, "No, don't do that. Just go on. Just go on."
I do not think, and I don't think anybody in this room thinks that this congresswoman.
Oh, you don't have to do that. Can you just grab
here we go.
Yeah, is the person who's
don't do that. Don't try to save me. I'm just an evil person. Don't worry about it. Just get him out of the room.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, it's ugly.
Yeah. So we have one more clip. Same thing, but following this, another person asked Rashida regarding her neighboring country, Syria. Yeah. And that's when all, and more of the same. So, so we'll play that as well.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting there.
Oh, yeah.
Congresswoman Tlaib, I need to know, will you support Representative Gates' resolution to pull troops out of Syria? These wars are going to get us killed. We are forcing the Syrians into massive starvation. This is not something to ignore. The bill is going to be voted on Wednesday. Why are people ignoring this? People are dying in your name. You are my representative, Representative Tlaib. I demand an answer to this resolution. I'm going to call your office. I'm going to be at your office. We need to pull our troops out of Syria. We need to stop the sanctions on these wars.
The United States would invade Syria in the northern part. Northern Syria is the breadbasket of the entire country. That's where the wheat is grown, and it also is the primary source of oil for heating and for transportation. We had two objectives in seizing the north. The first was to impose widespread famine on the entire country, to create starvation, to create childhood malnutrition. The other objective was to freeze to death the Syrian people, particularly the elderly people who were more vulnerable to being exposed, with all of the buildings having been blown down by American weapons throughout this 11-year war. Our biggest proxies throughout this war have been Al-Qaeda in Syria, which has gone through a number of names: al-Nusra, Tahrir al-Sham, and sort of this blur of names designed to confuse the public. But they have been our principal ally during the war. Al-Qaeda, the same group that flew the jets into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon on 9/11, killing 3,000 Americans here in this country. These were the groups that we now allied ourselves with just 10 years after 9/11. The doctrine of horror was so grisly and so barbaric. There was no crime that was too hideous for us to support. Our ultimate goal throughout this was to create a neo-colonial empire with the United States at its head, in which we could control all of the oil and gas resources of the Middle East.
Congresswoman Tlaib, I need to know, will you support Representative Gates' resolution to pull troops out of Syria? These wars are going to get us killed. We are forcing the Syrians into massive starvation. This is not something to ignore. The bill is going to be voted on Wednesday. Why are people ignoring this? People are dying in your name. You are my representative, Representative Tlaib. I demand an answer to this resolution. I'm going to call your office. I'm going to be at your office. We need to pull our troops out of Syria. We need to stop the sanctions on these wars.
The United States would invade Syria in the northern part.
So, also keep in mind, for those who we reported this a couple of weeks ago, Syria sustained an earthquake, the same earthquake that hit Turkey over a month ago. So obviously there's a lot of devastation there. Obviously with the sanctions, like people can't eat, basically. So the idea, like, they have to deal with these sanctions. There's a possibility of war on top of an earthquake that's decimating the country. And the fact that these are her neighbors, because Rashida is Palestinian, and the fact that she's saying nothing towards.
You'll notice I caught in the video when she's talking to the little her assistant. It should be fine. Don't worry about it. The bigwigs will take care of this problem. But that vote just happened. No, today.
Today,
right? Yeah. Jose, you got information on that?
Well, she voted yes to get our troops out of Syria, but it ultimately failed by 300 votes. Hakeem Jeffries voted no.
Interesting.
George Santos and Richie Torres, guys who hate each other, voted yes, actually. And I'm going to take full credit for that just because I called both of their offices asking that they vote yes. So,
I called Neil Dunn. I called Neil Dunn today. I said, hey, to do the thing, support your buddy.
Okay. So Jose, so first of all, I just want to say, thank you so much. I mean, just for, I think, giving some hope to people in terms of, when obviously we're not going to get the results that we want in terms of, your interventions and obviously having these politicians change their minds. But as you said, the fact that people don't necessarily have access to their politicians like that, and the fact that you're able to call them out, as you said, people are thankful for that, for those who may not be as brave as you to do that. And having gone through that myself, I understand how scared you can be, especially given like the risk now to you personally in terms of, obviously you didn't get a job after this, and I guess now they know your face. So you're like putting yourself more at risk. So what advice do you have? And I know, and actually someone did ask about your book, like where can they get access to that?
People, on my book, keep an eye out on my Twitter. I'm working with some people to put it out there publicly for people. It's just being edited right now and sorted through. The content is there. If you really, really want it, just reach out to me on Twitter. I think my handle is on my name.
Yeah, we have your Twitter in the description on this.
I will, reach out to me on Twitter. I will peruse your Twitter I will see if you've made fun of Marianne Wilson, and if you have, then I'll let you peek at it.
Right. So generally, for people who want to do this, what you're doing, if they ever have the opportunity, whether it's not even just federal politicians, but anyone on the local level as well, what advice do you have, like just very generally, what advice would you give to people who want to do this, but maybe nerves or whatever? Like, what would you say to people who feel this urge to call out politicians in this way?
Okay. There's a story, a short dialogue that I love called The Power of Words. And it's a dialogue written by Edgar Poe. He's one of my favorite authors. And in it, they're talking about, well, when you do this, with your hand like this, you move particles in the air, and then those particles bounce off one another infinitely, right? Meaning even if it's the effect is so minuscule, at some point, the particles that you moved is going to get around the world. There is a power in motion, right? When you move yourself around the world, when you move around your house, when you go grocery store shopping, you are making effects and changes in the world that ultimately would not have happened if you didn't leave your house that day, or if you didn't say this one thing or that one thing. So everything you're doing, whether you think it or not, already is changing the world in some way. But the power that we have as people is that we can choose what intention and what direction we want the world to go into, right? And I've only spoken about the impresses that we make upon the air, right? So when we do this, we change things. But what about the power of our words, right? Because words themselves are also imprints upon the air that have an effect that can also be carried and reverberated around the world too, as we've seen with these interventions. So the words that come out of your mouth and who they're directed to not only will ring in the ears of people who are on Twitter at the time they see it, but they will ring for all of eternity. And in that, you earn your immortality, because 2,000 years from now, 6,000 years from now, 60,000 years from now, there's going to be people going through some kind of injustice who will be looking for the courage to stand up and do it. And they need to look at you as an example of somebody who stood up and called out injustice when they saw it. So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future and change the world. And so I would just say, keep that in mind as you're deciding whether or not to stand up and to help get you over the fear, because the only scary part is the 30 seconds before you stand up. It's like jumping into the deep end of a pool. before you, if you have no experience swimming, right? You're going to jump into a deep end of a pool. Oh, I'm going to drown. I'm not going to be able to swim. But once you're actually in the water, once you actually stand up and you start speaking, that's the easy part. So the only fear is the standing up and saying something. Once you've broken the tension in the room, whatever you say out of your mouth, especially if it's beautiful and it's right and it's true, is already going to resonate throughout time. Forever. So I that wasn't a general answer, but you know, just do it. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Jose Vega. Words are violence. But speaking of,
before we go into the next segment, we did have a question for you, Jose. This is why I love our community, because you guys rock. But Anthony asked, is there a fund we can donate to you since you lost your job?
Yeah,
or
and I'm also,
if not, any mutual aid resources that you think that people should donate to.
I'm happy to say people, donated to me when I needed it the most, because I really wasn't sure how I was going to pay some of the bills. And they did. And people can, I have a thing on my Twitter, but people can donate to me on Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Cash App, my thing is Vegatastic. And on Venmo and PayPal, it's Vegaistic. I know. I'll put something up on my Twitter.
Put up on Twitter. Mother's maiden name, social security number. But on to our next segment.